Japan, an ancient land rich in history, the mecca of weebs and edgy Western teenagers the world over, a culture that birthed some of the best storytelling on the planet, and, well, this too. But seeing as I've come nowhere close to a point on this, and I'm desperately trying not to say anything that's going to get me canceled on Twitter, we're going to look at Gallian tanks from Valkyria Chronicles.
Well, I just can't understand any of this. Everybody in Japan is either a 10-year-old girl or a monster.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Tanker's View with me, your average tanker, Tony. Thank you for joining me this week for part one of, well, I don't know how many this is going to wind up being, but it's the Valkyria Chronicles anyway. I'm going to focus mainly on the anime as I don't have several $100s and years of my life to flush down the drain trying to play the games as autistically as I probably would.
And I didn't teach him. That's what's scary.
Daddy, I found your parental guided settings on YouTube. I can watch whatever I want now.
If you want proof on that, take a look at my Stellaris save folder. It is unreasonable. But before we panzer-vor, these are my socials. Feel free to join them at your leisure if you'd be so kind as to like, share, and subscribe. I really would appreciate it. It does help me in the algorithm. Here's my Ko-fi and my Patreon if you feel so inclined to get you special perks, such as monthly watch parties, voting on videos, pre-access to all uncensored videos, and bloopers when they do appear, which might be more frequent in the future. Valkyria Chronicles takes place in an alternate timeline in their version of 1937, just after their first Euro War. The protagonists are the Gallians, an amalgam of major European powers, French, German, etc. You know, probably what would have happened if we hadn't let an endless parade of inbred weirdos lead us for millennia. Seriously, why do we always put these kinds of people in charge? Like, are we just suckers for punishment at this point? Anyways, our antagonists are the Empire, or Imperials, a blend of Imperial, Japanese, and Russian influences with some Germanic hints, and they'll get their own video in part 2. So other noticeable differences in this timeline are, instead of good old-fashioned gasoline or diesel fuel, everything runs on ragnite or gasoline. I'll be honest, that sounds more like an Italian pasta than an actual MacGuffin in an anime. But also on top of that is the persistent use of teenage and high school girls in place of actual soldiers.
No way. We got you. Not a chance. Not this time. It never happened.
Listen, 20 years ago, I'd have been down for that, Japan, but come on. Hey, I'm an adult now. Can I have real grown-ups in my military romance shows, please? I don't think I'm being unreasonable, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. You want adults in your romance shows? I know I do.
어이네 낙심해대게루요 삭션 값 feel good 너이다.
Anyway, moving on. Today we are going to look at the Gallian light tank, the tank destroyer, the Edelweiss, and just a little quick bonus tank at the end. Even though this one doesn't appear in the anime, when I saw it on the wiki, I just had to include it because reasons. The light tank, or just Gallian tank. Aside from the Edelweiss, they don't have any other actual tanks in their arsenal. It forgoes armor in place of speed and firepower. Loosely based on the Panzer II with a short-barreled 75 and applique armor, 11 tons, about 17 feet long, 7 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and capable of zipping along at a brisk 35 miles per hour, it is a reasonable tank for its size, given Gallia's combat doctrine of active defense. Theirs is to hunker behind and try to ambush and snipe. Now, this makes a lot of sense. It's small, it's fast, it's easy to conceal in those ambushes, and great for rapid flanking attacks to get in behind some of them slower, more cumbersome Imperial tanks, which they are markedly slower. One-on-one, it will get crumped by any Imperial tank, hands down, with the exception of maybe their light tank. Despite being half as armed and half as armored than a standard light Imperial tank, it's still a little bit faster, might be able to sneak around to those sides, and the back where it's more vulnerable. Next is the tank destroyer, just called this tank destroyer. Now, is it just me or is this supremely lazy? It's a stug. It's just a god damn stunk. Alright? Or in this case, an Imperial light tank sans the turret. They didn't even upgun it. They just put a short 75mm on it, which at this point I'm just going to assume is the standard 75mm, because with a lack of visual evidence to the contrary, 24 caliber seems to be the standard size of their 75mm guns. Not the short, because I certainly haven't seen anything longer.
Disappointed!
But all joking aside, it makes great for ambushes and the terrain available in Gallia. Aside from the damn off-center gun, it's not a bad concept when used correctly. Finally is the Edelweiss, or our hero tank, our medium tank, or our main battle tank. I will probably call it all three during the remainder of this video because it gets called all three during the wiki and the anime. So it embodies the philosophy of all 2.5 generation tanks, a complete balance of armor, firepower, and mobility. Joe Average can do everything just well enough to stay employed, but nothing spectacularly well. Good enough for mass production. Now, they claim this is modeled after a German E-50 Panzer program. If you've ever seen an E-50, you know that's bullshit. This is clearly a Pershing, or with a hint of Leo 1, maybe. The only thing this has got in common with the E-50, aside from maybe some parts of the interior, is the padless track and an 88mm gun. That doesn't make it an E-50 modified, that just makes it have some of the same parts. You don't call the M16 M1A1, even though they kind of share the same gun as well, 105mm rifle. But like I said, this is packing an 88mm, a decent angled armor, and a damned blistering top speed of 35-40 miles per hour. It is built to outcompete and outshoot any Imperial tank they've got, aside from maybe some of their hero tanks. It's all around much more competent a tank, given the time period. And the only reason it really didn't get pushed in was because of cost and complexity in manufacturing. So the light tank won out. At least that's the in-lore reason, allegedly. Now, the big flaw with all of these tanks is, besides their comically tiny guns, yeah, it's not short, it's average, right, Gallia? Is the exposed radiators on the back. They glow pretty freaking brightly when these things are in operation. That seems like a pretty big flaw if you want to try and move at nighttime, and being backlit against any horizon or background on all. And that's going to limit these tanks to movements pretty much in daytime only. Not too bad for a genre that routinely goes out of its way to be more bombastic than Warhammer 40k. Heresy! But, Gallian tanks. In conclusion, there's not a whole lot to really rip on these guys. The creators of this franchise seem to have done just enough homework to put together a fairly believable alternate universe fantasy timeline where a few cultures get mashed together. You know what? It's fun. There's not a whole lot of flaws. The drama's there. And overall, a lot of the tank tactics also seem to be there as well during the anime. So with that, guys, thumbs up from me on this one. If y'all like what I do, please again like, share, subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I will see you on the next one. Peace.